Sunday, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in today. As you can tell by the title, this is the reveal of the subscriber pick as well as a sew along, and this again is Butterick 6875. I am wearing it, and I also have this version behind me. I am going to put timestamps along the bottom of the screen. I am going to go ahead and let the sew along go, and then I'll come back with my final review and pictures. Hey everybody, we're going to jump right into this sew along. It is really going to be a very quick and easy sew along. I'm not going to show all of the steps for this, just a couple places in the sew along. Obviously this is Butterick 6875. Thank you all again, subscribers, for picking this for the pattern pick in focus for the month of May. So this I am showing for this sew along view B, which has the elasticized sleeve, and view B and view C. A couple things I want to just point out. The length of the top is different based on if you do view A or view BC. View B and C is a little bit shorter, about 2 inches shorter. However, for me, I am keeping mine at the length of view A. I have already made view A. I'll show that here in just a second. But also, the next thing you want to keep in mind is the sizes are nested. So make sure that for example, I cut out a size 24. My full bust is a 45, my waist is a 39-40 right now, and my hip is a 52. And so the pattern piece for size 24 is the 18, 20, and 24. And again, I chose that size based on the finished garment measurement. I did do my first version in an Ankara, and my second version is in a lightweight denim. So keep that in mind, again, for the sizing that you choose based on the finished garment measurement, which is on the pattern piece. Speaking of pattern pieces, again, I'm not going to go over any cutting with you. However, tip. If you have scraps of interfacing, use that to interface your facing pieces. You have the back neck facing pieces and also the front neck facing piece, which is this. And so that's what I tend to do if I am not going to do the usual thing that I have shown a million times on my channel, where I will apply the interfacing where it will fold under and I will have a clean edge. However, for this particular top, I do not mind that the edges will be serged. You may choose to do that interfacing trick, or you may choose to do binding or serging, or you might turn under, depending on whatever your preference is. Do that, but I highly suggest use your scrap interfacing pieces. Also, when you get ready to cut the sleeve, so if you're doing the elasticized version with the elastic in the sleeve, you do have a shorter hemline for your sleeve. I decided, because I do like the length of this, I made this in a muslin, a wearable muslin that is, I was more concerned not about anything other than that twist at the top. And I will give you a close-up, because my muslin, this here twist, I did incorrectly, but I'll show you that in just a moment and show you during the sew along how to do it correctly. But make sure that if you do want a shorter sleeve, you use a shorter sleeve. I like this length because I think it'll give just ever so slightly a little bit more poof, because the sleeve is only about 2 inches shorter than sleeve A through from sleeve B and C, and so I didn't mind that difference. And so just that little bit extra length is good. I do show, and I'll do a overlay here, if you are using Ankara or a certain print, and because the front piece is cut flat, that is not cut on the fold, this is cut flat, make sure your piece is showing how you want it to for the design of your fabric. So for me, I wanted to make sure that this heavy part, because one border of one side of the Ankara is the design is heavier, you can definitely tell, and so I wanted that to go over my sleeve area. So that's why I placed mine the way it did, the way that I did. Also, the back is 2 pieces. You can decide to cut that on the fold if you want, but remember, you do still need be able to get the top on and off, but some people might not struggle with that or whatever, so it's an option. But it is cut 2 pieces, plus that allows for shaping if you leave it separate like this. But anyway, so I obviously did cut mine on 2, and also the closure for the top calls for a button. I am not going to do a button. I am just going to do a hook and eye for the closure up at the top. If you choose to, you can, when you complete this piece here, because this is the back facing, you can slip your loop for your button through that facing piece before you sew this down, and that way you don't have to worry about hand sewing that on, and then you just hand sew your button. But I don't want to do a button, I want to do the hook and eye, and so that is what I did. So let me try this on real quick so I can show you what I did incorrectly, and we're going to jump right into the sew along. Okay, so I moved you around so you can see. So this is the Ankara version. I'll show you the lower part because I forgot to mention also I will need to put side slits in mine because of the fullest part of my belly still needs room, so there isn't enough room there. So I'm just going to put about, I think it's about 4 inches I measured of side slit, so that's just open. But let me come up close so you can see. So, and you can kind of see my bra strap, so I'm moving that over ever so slightly, and so you can see the slit here, right? But what I did was, and I know exactly what I did wrong, that's why I did the muslin first. The twist, you're supposed to turn it twice so it sews into up here into the facing the shoulder piece here, because these are grown on sleeves. You do not have to worry about setting sleeves and everything, which is nice. But I had it on, I realized later after I finished it that when I was twisting it, it's supposed to be right side out, not inside out. And so when I twisted it, it twisted the wrong way. See, it twisted forward, which means the neckline is going forward and it's supposed to go in. So I will unpick that, because that is not, and it's just this much I'm unpicking right up in here, and then I'll twist it the other way and it'll be fine. But it's the slit. I was a little concerned about the slit, but it's fine. And so again, the back, I said I would do a hook and eye. And so yeah, let me show you the lower front so you can see how tight this is around my belly. And yeah, hopefully you can see this is tight around this part of my belly. So this is how it fits. Again, grown on sleeves. I could go down in size here, but I actually like that loose feeling for me. And you can see how the design, that's how I wanted the design to be fuller on one arm. Otherwise this would have been like smack dab in the middle from what I remember when I was cutting this out, and I didn't want that. And plus I wanted the same effect on the back. You see how I have that heavy design going on one side, so that's what I was looking for. So just keep that in mind when you're cutting this out. But seeing that this here is tight around the fullest part of my belly, I am going to go up, I believe I measured like 4 inches, and I will do that on the version that I the sew along. I won't show that part because it's not part of the pattern, but I'm just gonna stop that area and go in, and so it's a slit, and I'll open this up as well, so that's more loose here in the front. So that is how I will resolve that. So yeah, outside of that, I mean, I like it. Let's jump into the sew along. To make the adjustment for the side slits, this is all I did. I measured, actually this was 6 inches because I was taking into account the seam allowance and when I turn up and everything for the hem. So what I did was, it should be enough room, it should be fine, is that I measured this 6 inches and I just clipped into that. So when I sew this down, I'll stop here, and then that's when I'll turn this in, you know, slightly a couple times, stitch down, and have that room at the bottom, and that should give me what I'm looking for. Plus it'll be fine too when I want to tuck it in, half tuck, or do anything like that. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Okay, let's jump into it. Make sure all of your notches, of course, are marked, and any dots or anything on the pattern are also marked. We're going to go ahead and take our back pattern pieces, which has the notches in it, and we are going to stitch that together. And you are stitching from the dot. There should be a dot. When you put the pattern piece on there, there is a dot where you start and stop, back stitch there all the way down to the hem. And you are using a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so you should have your back pattern pieces sewn together, and I have also just pressed it, and I did serge my seam. You could also choose to French seam that seam as well, and your side seams. It'll be really easy to do since these are grown on sleeves, but I chose to serge mine. Go ahead and grab your back facing piece. It has the notch here, and then you have a dot. That's where you stitch, starting from the dot down, back stitch, and then you're going to attach your front facing piece to this. So that is sewn together. I am just going to quickly press this open and grab now your front facing piece. And just to show you, I did that open seam at the top. After you stitch, I just pressed it down, so it's all already open. So grab your front facing piece, which looks like this. So this piece looks a little weird. You have the little cutout, the angle cut out there. So what you have is the front. Make sure your markings are on there as well. So if you can see, you see my markings. I marked everything. So you have this side, because this is the opening side where you'll have that little slit opening. So what you will do is right sides together, take your back piece as well as the front piece. You're going to leave the end that has that square opening open. For now, you are just going to stitch one side. So you are not stitching the side that has the cutout here, just this side. Okay, so once you have sewn the one shoulder of the back facing to the front facing, again, the end that has the slit where you'll have the cut in the center marking, that is all open. What the instructions then will have you do is clean this edge. So you can just serge all the way around. That is what I am going to do. You can use bias binding, or if you did the trick with the interfacing, this is already cleaned off for you. So let me go ahead and do that, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so now you have your back piece. Go ahead and grab your front piece. I just wanted to show this because I know it might look a little weird in the in the instructions, but it is correct. You do have this little floppy piece that's separate, but don't worry, it matches up beautifully. You have this side seam for your shoulder, and then you have also this seam for your sleeve. And you will notice that there is a dot here for stitching. So you are stitching this entire side here, but on this side you see where there's that little flap, and so you do have a dot for stitching. Go ahead and stitch all the way down, and your hem is even, so you'll notice how there's this little extra right here, but just stitch up to that dot down, and also all the way on the other side. Now that you have your front and back sewn together at the shoulders, turn it right side out. And you see that opening here. Let me flip this so you can see. So you notice you haven't done anything with the side seams just yet. And make sure you give your shoulders and everything a good press. I have not done that just yet, but that's okay. I want to get through this piece. So take your facing piece. As you can tell, this little flap here, you have the little flap on the facing piece, and you had that little piece that was, you only sewed up to that dot, and you had that little piece sticking out there. That is where you are combining everything. So how this is going to look, because this side that you sewed earlier for the facing, the shoulder, that should match with the shoulder seam right here. And I'll zoom down. So I've zoomed down, and I'm just going to clip. So you had your markings here on that flat piece on the front and back. So make sure you have clipped. And what you're doing is just clipping all the way around, because you're going to stitch. This is the neckline. You are pinning and stitching together. And you do have the notches, so all your notches should be matching. Hopefully you can see that. Notches are matching, which is good. Here's your shoulder seam and the shoulder seam from the facing. Those match beautifully as well. And then as you continue to pin to the back, you'll notice that that also meets here. All of that meets perfectly. So go ahead, clip or pin. And the opening pieces, they match up as well. But again, you're just going to keep clipping all the way around. You get to the other end and you have your dots matching. So it might look a little jumbled. However, you have now that facing piece is now attached to the bodice. So your front and back is together. So the instructions and what I'm gonna do just ever so slightly different. So you are stitching. So there was the dot down here where the opening was for the facing piece and where the back is open. You start stitching at that dot and you go all the way around the neck edge to stitch. So stitching at that dot, go around the edge, break your stitching, then you'll have to pick up over here and go all the way around this neck edge for your stitching. And you don't stitch your shoulder at all on this side, because that's the part that you're going to be twisting. And then you will continue to stitch where your marking is. So after you have stitched everything, you can barely see my marking. I'm gonna try to come in just a little bit more, but you can barely see my marking, I know. But once you have stitched all around, stitch that facing on, what you're gonna do is stitch the two outer lines of, it looks like a huge dart, but you're stitching on the two outer lines, and that middle line is where you're going to cut. So you stitch all the way down to the bottom where it stops on both sides, the two outer lines. In the middle line, you're going to clip all the way down. Don't clip into your stitching. That is where you're going to stitch to. So go ahead and stitch on your facing. Again, I know it looks a little jumbled, but go ahead and stitch the facing on. I'll come back once that's done, and then I'll show you how this looks once this is stitched and cut. So here how it looks stitched all on. So now you have your back and your front facing piece stitched to your garment. And the instructions call for you to understitch as much as you can into this curve. I personally found that a little difficult to do. So what I did was trim down all the way around the, I clipped the corners here where the opening will be in the back. So when I turn it right side out, it'll be fine. But so the corners point out good. So what I decided to do was I trimmed all of this down, and then I just cut slits all into the curve just so that it turns over better. I did not see any issues with it pulling out or anything in the other version I did. Again, I'm using denim. I don't expect it to happen with this, but if you're using something like a viscose challis or something like that, something a little bit more drapey, you may have some of that, but I am choosing again just to trim down and then clip into the curve all the way around the entire neckline. And then I am going to stitch these lines as it says in the instructions, and then clip into here, but I will show you that in a moment. Okay, so hopefully you can see here, this is where that stitch line, I stitched here. You can see my stitch lines. What I did was pin the facing down so it wouldn't shift. So you don't want this facing, this front facing to shift at all. And then you want to go ahead and you see that middle line that you would have marked, go ahead and clip all the way down to the point there, all the way where you had stitched down. All right, now that you've clipped all the way down to that bottom there, go ahead and turn the facing onto the inside of the garment. Okay, so you have given your front, your facing is turned in, you've given everything a good press. Let me flip that back in, getting ahead of myself there. And so now this is where you do the twist. Before I told you how I goofed that part up. And so what you're doing, because you see the neckline here, it needs to turn one inward, two inward. So now you have two turns and you don't have that facing piece accidentally showing. And so what you are doing is now you are attaching this to the front shoulder where you stop stitching at that dot piece. It won't, and you'll see this in the instructions, this is not gonna, this long piece will not take up the whole shoulder piece up here because it wasn't much. And you attach it, you baste it together so that facing is facing inward, but you do have that little piece that's sticking out. That's where you are attaching this and you are basting that together. The rest of this will get attached to the facing on the inside. But for now, just go ahead and do two twists, two turns, and then stitch together. Okay, so I've left the clip here so you can see. Again, you're not attaching, you're not there. Here's the back facing piece, is not attached to anything. It's just that twist, and it's just that little bit that you are basting. Now you want to turn this inside out. So now you can see on the inside where you have basted. I'm just going to remove the clip. I just did that just so you can see. And your back facing piece was not attached. So let me show you again. You have the back facing piece. Remember, this is where the twist is, and you have this extra here. That will nest perfectly into the back facing piece right here. So the neckline of the thing, my battery cut off, so I'm going to show you this again. So now it's right side, inside out, and you have that extra piece from the twist part that you connected, you basted the one side. So now you want to, what you're just doing is sandwiching now that in between the back facing and the back piece. So once you have this piece out, then that back facing piece is over here. You're just turning that over, and I'm going to pin it in place so you can kind of get a visual. You're going to stitch 5/8 of an inch, right? Once it's stitched in place and it turns right side out, you have a clean finish just like this other shoulder. So you're just finishing off the shoulder piece. So go ahead over to your machine, make sure all of that is sandwiched nicely, and stitch 5/8 of an inch, and then you can clean that off with the serge. As you can tell, I serged earlier, so we'll go ahead and do that, and I will be right back. Okay, so as you can tell, I went ahead and serged it. It meets the rest of my serge. And so when you turn that in, as you can tell from the inside, this is how it looks. It's nice, clean shoulder finish, just like this shoulder is nice and finished. So what all you're doing, the rest is super duper easy. Depending on the version you're doing, this is view B for me. So all you're doing now, you're just finishing off your hems. You're going ahead and serge, you stitch and serge your side seams. For me, you might see markings here. Remember, that's because I am doing a slit, and I'm actually going to take my side seam here down to 1/2 inch on each side, also to give me some room. But I am going to have a slit in mine. And then when you do your hem for your sleeve, the instructions go through how to put in elastic. Use the method that you find is the easiest for you. I'm just going to serge, and then I'm going to turn up and leave a opening and run my elastic through. Again, you can follow the instructions in the pattern or do it a way that you might have a preference. So that is what I am going to do for mine. And then, of course, put your hem in. And that is it, you guys. Super duper easy. And of course, like I said before, you can choose to do your buttons. So you saw when we were adding the facing, you could have left a little opening before you stitched and put a loop in there, a thread loop or any other type of, maybe you use an elastic loop. You could have put that through there before you stitched these sections down and then added your button in. You could have done that. I didn't want to do that. I chose because I want a hook and eye, so that's what I'll be adding. And that's it, you guys. It is done. All right, everybody, so I want to thank you all for choosing this pattern. I am really into tops these days, and so this was perfect for me. As you can tell by the sew along, I did do a version A, which is here, view A, and then for the sew along I did view B, which is what I am wearing. It is actually in another denim, and this denim actually came from High Fashion Fabrics when I went to the store closing, for that. So that is the version I have on. You'll see pictures and video and everything pop up here momentarily, but I just want to give an overall review of the pattern. So as I had mentioned in this sew along, this is a really good pattern for either your lightweight fabrics. I did Ankara, which is back here. Pay attention to the design. It is beautiful for those border designs where maybe you want to accentuate the border of a particular fabric. This is a really good pattern for that. You just have to make sure that you place the pattern piece out properly. And this lightweight denim, it actually works. Now, I have to say, out the outset, the one thing that made me nervous about this top was the twist, and we went over that in the video, and I have since corrected this one. I'll show you this here momentarily. And then the slit, I was like, how far is that slit gonna come down? Will my bra strap show? Now, I do ever so slightly have to move my bra strap, not even maybe a quarter, just a little bit over, so it's not showing in that slit. The slit goes down to me relatively deep, but not too deep, and so you're not exposing or showing anything at all. And yeah, I noticed in a few of my videos, like my tan line is like really showing. But that's okay. The elastic in there, I didn't show, as you saw from the sew along, the elastic and how to put the elastic in, or the or how to sew the hem, because that's really easy. The pattern is only 4 pieces, so super duper easy, as you can tell, to put together. The only thing that may trip you up is this facing piece, because there's a front facing piece, and then you have to make sure that you turn this properly so you clean off the insides of the top beautifully around the shoulder, and then you can tack those down as well in there, especially if you have something like a rayon viscose challis, something like that. Yeah, just make sure, depending on the drape of your fabric, if you find that maybe your facing or something needs to be a little bit more stable, you can do that. Overall, this was a super duper easy pattern, and that's why I made 2. One, to make sure I can get that construction right on the first one. It sews up, I would say, about an hour and a half. It really is a quick sew because it's only 4 pattern pieces. You have the front, which is cut on one just flat, and then the 2 for the back, and the back, as I mentioned, has the shaping where you can either cut it on the fold if you want, but you have to remember you still have to get this over your head. However, I almost feel like with the width of this, and then you have this here, you probably could get away with doing it cutting the back on the fold and not worrying about that opening in the back. But I went over that, how you can finish off the closure for both this and that version. I did finish off the back with the hook and eye, super easy. And usually, you all know I'm not a hook and eye person, but I didn't want a button. I just wanted something a little bit more concealed for it. And so what are some notes? I think I said everything I needed to say actually during the sew along. This is not a hard pattern to put together. The side slits, I will pop up some video real quick. The side slits on this worked beautifully. As you can tell, it loosened up in here in that waist and hip. So it's my full belly. Even though this here was supposed to, is designed, it says, to go down to your hip, but it's really hitting my higher hip, and so it needed to go across my full belly. So that's what I should have been measuring for that piece, but that's okay. I put the slits in and it works beautifully. Now for this one, I'll bring this up closer. I fixed the front. So I did unpick that. There wasn't a ton of unpicking. I know you can barely see it with the design. There wasn't a ton of unpicking, because if you saw in the sew along, this piece here that's attached is not a lot. It's like maybe 2 to 3 inches, and then I returned it and then sewed everything back together. But remember, and as you can tell too, I want to point off, see how the heavier part of that design, because this was a border print Ankara, is on this side, and then I did the same thing to go on this sleeve on this side. This Ankara actually came from Crystal from Crystal Sews and Stuff. She had gifted this to me back in actually last year, 2023, for BHM when she came for the weekend. And so I had different plans for it, but I was like, oh, I bet that top would be nice in Ankara, and it is. The only thing is, and again, I'll pop a picture here, the fit for around my belly area. So I said in the sew along that I was going to put slits in this, and I very well could have, but I am not. What I have decided to do is, based on where the waist is on this, I'm actually going to trim this bottom half off, and it's because I am working on a upcycle project, and I'm going to put a different bottom on here, and you'll see what it is. And no, it's not peplum. I thought about, oh, maybe I can just do a peplum, you know, cut it at the waist and then do a peplum. I didn't want to do a peplum, and so there's something else I thought of that I wanted to do. So I am going to give that a try to go with this upcycle piece that I am working on. So if you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe, because I do have an upcycle piece coming in June. Also coming on Wednesday is a pattern release. That's why you do not see Lady Dane, because she is wearing one of, I made 2 of those, and so she's wearing one, and so you'll see that on Wednesday. So make sure that you subscribe if you haven't already. But my overall thoughts on this top: super easy. It's still available. It's still available in the drawers. It's still available on simplicity.com. This pattern was just released last year. Well, I picked it up in 2023 December. Let me just make sure. When was it? When was the copyright on here? 2022. So this came out in 2022, but I picked it up last year in December. And it calls for charmeuse, cotton blends, crepe de chine, double georgette, a poplin, shirting, silky types. So yeah, if you using your more silky types and different things of that nature, definitely you want to see my bra peeking through just a little bit. Just have to shift. Make sure that you definitely want to make sure that your facing piece and everything is tacked down. But yeah, this is a different style for me. When I saw the pattern in last year when I picked it up, I was like, oh, that's different. But I really like that twist piece. I like the elastic at the end of the hem, and yeah, and I like the slit. And so I said, let me give it a try and see how I like it. And I like it. I like it a lot. I like that it's grown on sleeves. There's no setting in any sleeves or anything like that. You have the 2-piece for the back for any shaping that you want to do. So yeah, so but this, I'm keeping all of this the same because I love how it looks, but I am chopping off this, and you'll have to stay tuned for what that will look like when I reveal my upcycle project. So yeah, that is it. If you have any questions, definitely leave them down in the comment section down below. I thank you all so much again for selecting this. Head on over to the community tab. I have my patterns up, Butterick, for June. June is the last month for Butterick, so head on over to the community tab, select the pattern that you think that I should make up, and yeah, we will reveal that in the June sewing buzz. I have a lot to talk about in the June sewing buzz too, so make sure you guys are subscribed and make sure you tune in, and don't forget to thumbs up this video and let me know what you think. All right, everybody, have a blessed one, and we will see you on Wednesday. Bye.